While talking on your phone is great, having internet access everywhere all the time, kind of good, right? Well, that is exactly what Dr. Teresa Meng thought.
Meng immigrated from Taiwan in 1983 and came to the U.S. to work in the field of wireless communications.
She had a vision, a wireless future. What seems obvious now was anything but back in the mid-90s.
Wi-Fi didn't even exist. That was considered crazy back then.
We all have Wi-Fi now, but when Teresa started, it was unknown.
The industry was not interested in doing this.
Because it was difficult and expensive to implement, and we changed that. Teresa had invented this amazing technology. Her invention was figuring out how to do radio frequency devices in CMOS. And the thing that is so important about CMOS is that it is the easiest kind of semiconductor to make. And that means that it's also the least expensive. So when we realized that we could use her invention for Wi-Fi, this was both a huge discovery and a real revelation.
If you believe wireless is the way people want to communicate in the future, this is the way how we're going to implement it.
She asked her friend, former Stanford president and computing legend John Hennessy, what to do. The answer came swiftly: start your own company.
I never worked in industry before. I was just a professor, but I said, okay, I'll give it a try.
She took leave from her professorship at Stanford and started Atheros Communications.
It was pretty hard starting a company because I literally learned everything from scratch.
As you try to build a company and make it successful, you encounter all kinds of problems. And many of these problems had a lot of emotion associated with them because people had invested a lot in trying to solve them one way or another.
The biggest obstacle we ran into in the sense of fundraising was most investors believe that the communication will be telephone line. The one even said that I don't believe this crap because God didn't intend CMOS to be operating in gigahertz. That was a quote.
But once we started making Wi-Fi devices in CMOS, other people saw what we were doing and said, oh, we better do that too. Otherwise, we'll be left behind.
By the late 1990s, tech giants all agreed that Wi-Fi was coming, but not for a good 10 years.
I said 10 years? I can do it in 2 years. What are you talking about? We should not wait that long.
Teresa, of course, was one of the early female founders of a technology company. And this was important to all of us.
I think the most difficult challenge that I have faced and actually survived and succeeded is actually being a woman in a male-dominated profession. The most difficult form of discrimination is the subtle one. It is tough because this form of discrimination or prejudice usually came as a kindly worded advice. Women really have to be very careful to differentiate advice that help us to reach our goal or the advice that simply serve to convince ourselves that we simply cannot do a man's job. It was really, really, really hard because these battles are tough. You'll be faced with obstacles, you'll be faced with all kinds of insults, but fundamentally, they just don't believe women can stand alone. Women can make their own stories.
And in a few years, Dr. Teresa Meng made her vision come true. And thanks to her, the cost of wireless communication dropped by a factor of 5,000.
It actually made Wi-Fi easy and inexpensive and ultimately pervasive.
I just think that people should have access to cheap or free, ubiquitous data as a basic human right. Everybody should be able to communicate without being held hostage by the cell phone company. What I call back then democratizing the airway.
I think this invention was something that she just enabled us to make this quantum leap forward like we've never seen before.
If today 90% of the world owns a smartphone, they owe their thanks to the scientific creativity and perseverance of Dr. Meng.
When we started Atheros more than 20 years ago, it was generally believed that ubiquitous, high-speed, wireless data communication was not possible. I decided to give it a try.